All right, so I'm so fortunate today to be talking to Neil Grimmer. He's the brand president of Source. And I guess before we get started, Neil, you got to tell me, what is Source?
Yeah, so Source is a company that at the core has a technology called a hydropanel. And that hydropanel uses the power of the sun and the water vapor suspended in the troposphere to create purified drinking water.
Okay, because I think I saw this. I think Ben has one. Ben Sullins has one on his roof. And I was like, hang on, Ben, you're not just getting water out of the air. There must be some other pipe I'm not seeing or something. So explain to me, how does this work?
Yeah, so the hydropanel on its surface looks almost like a solar panel. It's 4 feet by 8 feet in dimension, and it has some depth to it. And what it does is it uses the power of the sun. There's photovoltaics in the center of the panel to power all our electronics and the fans. And what that power does is it pulls air in from the environment around the panel. And there's a hygroscopic material, which is a very absorbent material. So similar to if you were to imagine a salt shaker and you put rice in that salt shaker, that rice will absorb the moisture in the air, keeping your salt crystals in crystallized form. So think of it like that, with a nanomaterial at scale. And that collects the water vapor, and then we condense it out. And in that condensing process, turns into liquid water. And once it's turned into liquid water, we then mineralize it with calcium and magnesium for human health, for absorbability of that water, and then for great taste.
Okay, so I get why we put solar panels on our roofs. We need electricity. Why do we need water? I mean, I can just go to my tap and turn it on and get water.
And you see in the news almost every day, due to climate change, we have massive issues with water access. 2.4 billion people today don't have access to clean, safe drinking water around the world. That number is expected to increase to 6 billion people by 2050. So just think about the implications of that. The world's population, 6 billion people not having access to clean, safe drinking water. And our technology, by the very nature of it not using on-grid power, using renewable feedstocks of sun and air, allows us to, in a very decentralized way, bring water exactly to where people need it in a very climate resilient way. So for example, I have 2 hydro panels on the roof of my house here in Phoenix, Arizona, plumbed directly into my fridge. And obviously, we have water-related issues in our area of the world, in developing area of the world, where quality of that water, just north of us is contaminated water with arsenic naturally occurring. And then, of course, with all the phenomena we're seeing with drought in general, water access is going to become increasingly difficult. Now, that's in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, imagine that in all corners of the world where they don't have the same kind of infrastructure that we have here today.
Okay, but I think I got you. The world is covered with oceans, right? Over 70% oceans. Why don't we just desalinate? That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of technology out there trying to solve this problem. And the first thing I would say on desalination, use an enormous amount of electricity, which has pretty significant impacts on the environment. The second thing is the desalination process itself. It has to put that brine somewhere. And typically that gets pumped back into the ocean. And then it actually has a pretty disastrous effect on that ecology in that localized area. So different from that, and I'd consider that almost like a brute force approach to getting water. Now, much like, coal is a brute force approach to getting electricity, solar panels change the dynamics completely of that. And back in the day, when solar was coming online, no one thought it was even possibly imaginable that the cost of solar would actually cross the cost of coal-powered energy. But today it has. And the benefits of it is that it's infinitely renewable feedstock, like I said, and it has the ability to be put anywhere the sun is shining, right? So fully decentralized, which means, and much like with the hydro panels, if you think of the same principles, it means that you can have decentralized water access. Almost think about it as micro water utilities, anywhere you need it, as small as a home, as large as a large scale community. Because similar to solar, our hydro panels can be ganged into arrays that we call water farms, where you can put thousands of hydro panels together, creating millions of liters of water a year.
What is the technology that's allowed this to happen now? Why haven't I heard about this like 30 years ago?
The technology was created by our founder and CEO, Professor Cody Friesen, developed it in his lab at ASU. So right here in the Sonoran Desert, where the water needs are great. And, it was a combination of his innovations were material science, that's his background, combined with AI and machine learning that helps us tune water production based on the unique environment that we're in today, combined with a whole number of other functional patents that we brought together to make this system truly one of its kind in the world.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because I saw that you have a network operations center, and that, even though that sounds cool and I would like to have one of those, why do you need those if you've got panels on people's roofs? Why can't they just set and forget?
Right. Well, one of the cool things, Zach, is that this is the first time we've actually digitized water. And what we mean by that is that each panel connects to the network operating center here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we actually have, eyes in the sky on water production for each panel we have. It does a couple things for us. One, that data packet feeds into the machine learning algorithm that we have and allows us to modify that panel in its relative environment for maximized production. Second thing, those data sets that we have around the global weather patterns and adjustments allow us to really fine tune all aspects of even how we when we're doing a new project, we have really good data on how much water we can produce in an area based on the historical data that we have, right? And then equally importantly, if a panel ever goes down, we get an alert immediately and we can go out and fix it, right? So I think for all of those reasons, that network operating center is a vital part of our operation.
Does it matter where these panels go? So I'm in New England, and I know during a hot, sticky summer, there must be a lot of humid air, which is probably good for the panels. But you're in a desert where it's really dry. Does that mean I can make more water with my panel than you can?
Yeah. So relative humidity in the atmosphere will actually influence the water production, but not as much as you'd think. Actually, we still produce a fair amount of water here in low relative humidity in the Sonoran Desert. But as you can imagine, it's a function of water vapor that's in the air. And so if there's more water vapor in the air, it allows us to capture more of it in the system itself.
Now, it seems like there might be an advantage here that I hadn't thought of before. If you pump the water out of the ground, it's full of whatever is in the ground with it, all the contaminants. And we've been hearing about PFAS and all sorts of awful things in water that you got to filter out. I have to spend a lot of money on a reverse osmosis system here at my house. Do you have to do the same thing with the air, or is it just, how does it come out of the air? If there's let's say pollution in the air, does that go into the water? Yeah,
and so the answer is no. And one of the great things, and you said it, I think, really well, which is our groundwater is full of contaminants, both naturally occurring and man-made, and that's true across the world, right? So I mentioned that we have naturally occurring arsenic here in Arizona, but you can have contaminants from PFAS, industrial byproducts, even biological activity, right? In many parts of the world, the water, is filled with life, and that life isn't good for us, right? So we bypass all of that by the very nature of how we separate the water vapor from the air. We separate the pure water molecules, and that's it. And so it actually allows us to leapfrog all of those issues. As we said, the first one is access. The first water issue is access. The second one is contamination, right? And so it leapfrogs both of those issues in a very elegant way.
Now, is this why I saw you actually have a bottled water product, Source Water? Is that why you have, because I was kind of surprised. I'm like, why do you guys need a bottled water if you're making water? But I guess that does make sense. This water that you're making is really good.
It's fantastic. I have a background in consumer packaged goods. First company I started was called Plum Organics, which is an organic baby food brand. We invented the squeeze pouch baby food, if you've ever seen that, or you got kids, Zach. And for me, when I first met Cody and we started talking, the first thing that came to mind was, this is some of the best water on earth, and we tapped the sky for it. And so when I think about what made Plum successful, it was that young parents wanted not only a great product that tasted good and fed their kids, but they wanted to know that it was having a positive impact on the world, and they were voting with their dollars, right? And so every product they buy from Plum knew that they were going into organic agriculture and sustainable supply chains. Well, it's the same here. So Source Water is the first renewable water on the shelf. If you walk into any grocery store, that's all groundwater extracted for the most part. And the idea there is that what comes with that, and we know in many parts of in the United States, groundwater is becoming depleted, and we have real issues around extraction in communities. Oregon, California, putting bans on how much water extraction can happen. And again, we bypass all of that. It's the first brand on the shelf that actually has renewable water, and it tastes amazing. So we'll have to send you some. We're not out in New England yet, but we're in Whole Foods and in California, Hawaii, and all of the Southwest.
And you mentioned that you add minerals back into the water, because I'm assuming when you get it out of the air, it's just water, H2O. And a lot of what we taste when we think water tastes good, I think are some of those minerals that we're used to getting so you had to figure out what minerals to add back in?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, two things to that. One is taste profile, obviously, and then second is the right combination of minerals for really good absorption in the body. So that's one of the things that, minerals, electrolytes do, is allow you to kind of absorb more of that water. So yeah, that was part of the process. And simply put, it's calcium and magnesium, two things that all of us as humans need. So
now, just like you need more than one solar panel on your roof to make enough power for your house, would one hydro panel, and I know these are bigger, these you said are 4x8, would one hydro panel work for the typical household? How do you size them?
Yeah, so we size them, and to give you a sense, like 2 panels roughly would produce 3 to 4 cases of bottled water a week. So if you think about, when we talk to customers at a residential level, we kind of understand what geography they're in, because obviously that matters in terms of production. But also how many people are in the house, what's their normal consumption of water. We really focus on drinking water in the house, not any of the other applications of water. But and then we size the array accordingly. But typically 2 panels for a family of 4 is just what's needed.
And then, so this would get its own kind of plumbing. So this, like you said, at your house, it gets plumbed into your fridge, which is where you get your water from. So like in a typical house, this would just go to 1 or 2 points in the house? Yeah.
So typically what we'll do is we'll route it to a fridge or a faucet, a dispenser right at the sink.
Okay. So that way you're just using it for what you want to, which is drinking. You don't want to bathe in it.
Yeah, we don't integrate it into the house plumbing system, but rather bypass and just connect into those points of drinking water.
All right, let's go to cost, because I know for a lot of people, this would probably be the sticking point, right? They're like, sounds great so far, but I got to get this big thing on my roof, and then that's got to cost me a lot more than what I'm paying for water now. So where are you at now in terms of cost? Because I know when you start a company, things cost more until you get to scale.
Yeah, so one of the things, and I should mention to all the viewers, obviously we have a number of different applications of our technology. One of them, is residential. So I'll answer your question specifically to that. But, we're in 52 countries around the world. We have large scale arrays in Australia and the UAE. And so we're talking about thousands of panels connected together. But when we bring it down to a residential level, what we're really talking about is roughly the system is 1 or 2 panels with an in-home reservoir. And that ranges between, $5,000 to $7,000 on average, right? And then that comes with, it's a 15-year life of the product, and it comes with a 5-year warranty, and ultimately, obviously, installation and everything associated with that. But just to put it in a relative perspective, you think about kind of bottled water, and you're kind of in the 50 cents a liter kind of range. On average, ours is about 15 cents a liter. So when you think about the comparisons, the cost efficacy of our system, it's not only delivering great high quality water that you'd buy on the shelf of Whole Foods, which means your RO system's not going to create that, right? But it also means that you're getting a cost benefit from a lot of other drinking water alternatives. And the last, which I think a lot of our customers really care about, is you're doing good for the planet as well. And you're creating what we call climate resiliency, which means, weather patterns independent, you're going to have drinking water, and that matters. And increasingly, it'll matter in the coming years.
It's a really cool concept, because a lot like solar, where the sun shines every day, and then you get free power from the sun. Here you're getting free water from the air every day that the panels are working. So you can imagine years and years of just free water. I'm curious, are there restaurants that have partnered with you? Because I can imagine if I was a restaurant owner, almost every restaurant you go into, there's, do you want water? And I can imagine that this would be a great, selling point.
Sure. Yeah. No, we have a lot of, there's a hospitality component to our business. For example, we announced a partnership with the Red Sea Development Company in Saudi Arabia. It's the largest development of an 18 resort, basically community/city on the Red Sea. And we're the official branded water for that. We have a great partnership with a restaurant called Three Blue Ducks in Australia. They're the Chez Panisse in Australia, and they serve our water proudly every day, and they're farm to table. And so what we provide is water farm to table for them. So it's great. And, another example is the Roseate Hotel, which is a high-end 5-star hotel in India. And we have panels on the roof of the facility, and we serve water in their restaurants.
Now, are there any things in the panels that I have to change out, like filters or, things that grab the water, like you're saying, it's hydroscopic materials?
Yeah, so we have one filter. It's basically an air filter that gets changed once a year. So it's actually very low maintenance, very simple to swap out. It's not much different than swapping out one in your AC unit.
Can you tell me about how the company started and what your growth has been so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cody Friesen, founder and CEO, started the company in 2014. Noteworthy to mention that he's got a background in material science. He's a professor at ASU, and he also started a company in the renewable space in batteries prior to Source. So actually the inspiration for Source came from when he was working with a community in Africa, bringing his battery technology combined with solar. And he noticed that throughout his time there, that girls and women were spending the majority of their day walking for water. Right. And as he started digging into that phenomena, realized that, these girls and women were spending up to 6 hours a day walking for water. And that journey was very treacherous, whether it was treachery from humans or the wildlife around them. And so not only were they not, spending time with their own personal prosperity, but they were putting their lives at harm to get water for their families. And that was the impetus to start ask the question, can I use the same principles of renewables that are used for solar and battery technology for water? And that led him on a journey to create the first Hydropanel and this incredible material that we use to absorb the water vapor. And then the rest is history. So started having products installed in 2015. And as we've marched through the journey, we've got tens of thousands of Hydropanels in over 52 countries around the world, ranging from community applications. So we have 540 home installation in the Navajo Nation in our own backyard here in the Southwest, where there's very little infrastructure and the cost for putting infrastructure in is incredible. To commercial applications, we have Hydropanels on the roof of hospitals in Jamaica, where obviously hurricanes and a lot of environmental impacts happen. So there's a very consistent supply of water there. To what we were just talking about, which is the consumer side with bottled water in the UAE and Australia, in the United States, and Mexico and Chile, and of course residential, which we were just discussing as well, and that is around the world.
I was just going to ask, what do you think is your biggest growth market? It sounds like you can be in many markets where the governments are interested in this, and communities, commercial and residential. Where do you see? Is it across the board, or do you see that there's one area where there's just so much demand for your product?
Well, it's such a transformative technology that, as you just said, it's really about where do you start more than anything. And, I'll tell you kind of those four areas are where we're focused in the business today. But where we ultimately want to be is the lowest cost of potable water on the planet, done in a completely decentralized way, infrastructure free, serving communities, literally globally. All right. So our goal is to make sure that we have large scale arrays serving as effectively decentralized water utilities, providing fantastic water, democratized water for everyone in the world.
Do you think at some point in the future this could be scaled up, and maybe it already is, to the point where we used to just put solar panels on roofs and now we have big solar farms? Are you imagining that someday there will be big source farms, water farms?
Well, it's exciting, Zach, is we're actually there today. We have 1,000-panel array water farm in Dubai, in the UAE. We have an equally sized one in Australia. So actually a majority of our installations are larger scale installations of water farms. So that future is now. And what's really exciting about it is that, again, you go from one Hydropanel equivalent to one solar panel, and it can do certain things. When you start talking about tens of thousands of Hydropanels, it changes the game fundamentally. And what's beautiful about that is not only we're demonstrating today, but it also has inherent redundancy. As we talked about, if there's an issue with one panel in the NOC, you still have, a whole bunch that are kicking off, making great water. And the fact that it is decentralized allow us to put them, it has to have some orientation to the sun, but literally anywhere there's sun shining, air flowing, and it's not frozen, we can produce water.
So, I mean, just like air conditioning changed where humans could live back starting like in the 40s and 50s, you can live in deserts now, right? Is this going to mean that we can also do that again? We can move to places where water was an issue, but now is no longer an issue?
That's certainly an opportunity. There's a lot of community development aspects to this, working with home developers, saying where there isn't potable water, where water needs to be trucked in, we can actually put either very specific water on each home and or kind of, like I said, these kind of micro utilities for that community. So that's one big thing. The other thing is we're going to see a lot of migration patterns shifting based on the changing weather and the impacts it has on localized water, right? And so actually what this allows is for people to stay in the places they live and the cultures they love and be able to have access to water, which is, at the fundamental of a human need. Be able to provide that.
Jesse and I just did some camping in our R1T with a camper. We hadn't really done that before, and that kind of opened my eyes to new ideas. I'm wondering, could you put a smaller version of this on a camper to get like potable water when you're out camping in the... We
get that question a lot, and the simple answer is yes. Over time, in our innovation pipeline, there's all kinds of applications that we do today that are in our future, and again, like you said, I mean, it has that flexibility to be able to solve those kinds of needs. Our current product today isn't designed for that application, but the simple answer is yes.
So for people watching who are like, okay, well, this sounds pretty cool, I'd like to invest in this. Tell us where you are in terms of a company, in terms of your funding, where you are in terms of funding rounds. Are you thinking of going public, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we actually just recently announced a Series D raise. So we raised $130 million. We have BlackRock, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is Bill Gates' venture fund, behind us, Harvard Endowment, Duke Energy, just an incredible suite, drawdown fund, just an incredible suite of partners that are really investing behind the future of sustainable living and sustainable technology. And so we're proud to have those folks around the table with us to help build the company. And, and I think, in our overall life cycle, certainly the public markets are interesting. They're interesting times right now in the public markets. But we're really focused on growing the business, making sure we have fantastic products in the market and really delivering on our promise to customers.
So if people want to go check out more about Source, where should they go?
Go to www.source.co.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Neil. This was really eye-opening. And now I want to get some Source panels for my house because Ben has them. So I figure we need them over here on the East Coast. See how they work. We can get you some data. That's my selling point to you. And that sounds great. Thank you for doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. Great to talk to you.